Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about, of course, the challenges being faced by the common man, you and I, everyone all around us on the economic front. Also, of course, the recent challenges, of course, we've seen on the energy front also. We saw the Prime Minister also say that he and his government are fully cognizant of the challenges being faced by the public, but of course they don't want to make hasty decisions that will have invariable consequences for Pakistan and its people. What are the short-term solutions? What are the long-term solutions? Are there any short-term solutions at all to the kind of economic crisis that Pakistan is facing at this time? Are things going to get better? These are hard questions. Of course, we are also of course, we have a caretaker government in place with a limited mandate. How much can they do? All of these questions are what we'll be asking our guests tonight. I have with me Dr. Khalid Waleed, who's an energy expert. He's also an economist. Thank you for being with us. We also have with us Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, who's a former advisor, Ministry of Finance. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Khalid, of course, we've been hearing for a while now, we've been facing it for a while, whether we talk about, the price hike, inflation, we talk about the energy crisis, we talk about the issues, on the economic front. We saw the increase in fuel prices. Overall, things are not looking good as far as the economy is concerned. Do you think they're ever going to get better for Pakistan? Let's start with that.
Well, the harsh reality is that there are multiple crises. And they are persistent crises. We are now facing electricity crisis, we are now facing petrol, diesel crisis. In winter, we would be facing with a new sort of crisis, that would be a gas crisis. Because in winter, there are different needs, and in summer, there are different needs. In summer, the load, our cooling load is powered by electricity, and electricity price hike adversely affect the consumers. In winter, there is a whole lot of new arena in which there is a heating load, and we get to get natural gas, or we get to get LPG in order to have our heating need fulfilled. In that period, we would be facing with the gas crisis. I think we need to plan for long term. For that long term, we would be making very harsh decision, or I would say not very consumer friendly decisions in the short term, but those hard decisions, if they are sustainable, they would reflect in long-term ease for the consumers in Pakistan.
So you think that if we take these with a pinch of salt, then things are likely to get better for us?
Yes, this is what we need to understand as a consumers as well. If government I would say that they put all their efforts in providing this short-term relief to the consumers, things would not get better in the long run. We need to plan for long run.
Let me go to Dr. Khaqan. Dr. Khaqan, we've been talking about the economy for a while, we've been talking about the crisis for a while, we've been trying to, pick your brains about the solutions. But, unfortunately, things don't seem to be getting better. Of course, we are following the IMF-led guidelines, and I think you said to me a long time ago on the program that if we can get to the 9th review, if we can continue with the IMF, perhaps, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Do you still feel that way?
So, Mahrukh, in the short run, being in an IMF program should have given us better dollar liquidity in the system, and that should have stabilized the rupee, which kind of has, shaken the confidence of the markets as well as the people of Pakistan. In the immediate, I think that has happened. This has created an expectation of still, macroeconomic stability being, still a little far away from where one would have liked. Having said that, inflation hasn't eased either, and couple that with the energy crisis, things start to look quite difficult in the short run. But Pakistan economy is wired in a manner where managing the short run is as much of an imperative as it is to manage the long run. So in the short run, I think the government has to start ensuring that the dollar inflows that were expected with the IMF program are there. These are Pakistan's IMF program is well funded, well financed at about $28.5 billion, with the rollovers and the loans. So those monies have to flow in. Actually, if you look at the State Bank reserves, they have gone down by about 900 million in the last few weeks. That itself is kind of not a helpful sign. Along with the remittances have gone down.
Let me interject for the for someone like me who's not economy savvy. Why didn't it happen? Why didn't we see appreciation in the dollar like we were anticipating after the resumption of the IMF program?
Yeah, it's a good question. One, I think the flows have been slower. The flows, I mean, the 9 billion that was pledged. There are in Geneva, the project loans, the program loans, the kind of commercial financing that we should have taken. So I think we need to start building on them so that the market, the interbank market itself becomes more liquid. So you have an interbank market which is less liquid, so it's creating an appreciation there. Then we have kind of opened the imports, which we had agreed with the fund to open, and that itself is creating a demand for the dollars. Couple that with the fact that we are now trying for the interbank to keep a smaller gap with the curb market, the outer market, the market that exists in the open. All these things and clearing of the backlog of containers, the dividends and the royalties have all added to a slowing of the remittances, which in July actually Mahrukh slowed down considerably. They fell about 19% compared to the last July. So when you couple all these things, you can see that the dollar liquidity crunch, which should have eased with us going to the fund, has not. And if that hasn't, the pressure continues on the rupee. That perturbs everyone in the country, and that kind of creates an atmosphere where macro stability is hard to find. It fuels inflation, and inflation again a kind of creates market jitteriness, which you've also seen in the Pakistan Stock Exchange. And then there are fears that you may have monetary tightening. In the short run, here's the solution now. So the short-run solution is that the government must manage the expectation and the uncertainty. The uncertainty on the political front, the uncertainty on the flows of the dollars, the uncertainty of the kind of short-term measures required on the energy front, the short-term measures required on containing our expenditures, and expectations that things are under control. They have a plan. They must do high-frequency communication with the people of Pakistan, with the markets. Mahrukh, these are different times. We live in times where your communication has to be as high frequency as the data is. If there is a data, good or bad, or doesn't matter kind of data, you still have to communicate with the market. I think that communication gap is creating a void as to what their plan is, which maybe some of them may have ideas how to tackle those things. And then they must buckle up with the IMF and come up with the energy solution in the short run, whether it's staggering of the bills. I've always said that IMF is a matter of negotiation. IMF is your doctor of the last resort. IMF is your banker. Treat them like that. Open your books and tell them that July and August have an aberration in the bills. Mahrukh, the bill that you've gotten in August has 2 months, July and August monies of about 14 rupees on the average, I'm talking about, which should be only 7 rupees because the tariff came in late. Now that's an aberration. Go back to the fund, tell them that this aberration has happened. And then once you've settled this short term, which will take you another month or two, I think the caretakers would probably run out of time. But then you start planning for the long term, but Dr. Khalid is rightly saying, without that planning, the next 5 years will not be sorted out. I think that's the larger atmosphere in which the Pakistan economy is currently.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Dr. Khalid, Dr. Khaqan has mentioned uncertainty. He's mentioned, those factors, of course, are contributing to some of the situation. What about things like smuggling? The fact that we needed to clamp down on, in those areas also, and we haven't succeeded substantially. Isn't that true? Yep,
you are true. I would take Dr. Khaqan's words forward, that we need to cater for this uncertainty, and we need to cater for this, as you rightly mentioned, that this smuggling factor which is causing instability and which is causing uncertainty as well to the capital market, to the foreign exchange market. This uncertainty in all the markets, it translates into the investors' confidence, and we are losing investments, which is bound to come in Pakistan after this IMF program or negotiated program. I would also agree with Dr. Khaqan that the government need to tell IMF that we need to renegotiate, or we need to have these short-term measures coming in for the consumer, so that we control or contain this rising public sentiment, which is also bad for economy in terms of rising sentiment, in terms of creating uncertainties, in terms of strikes, in terms of loss of businesses. So what government need to do is first bring certainty to the economy, to the market, give good signals, use information just like mentioned by Dr. Khaqan, that make good communication with the markets and with the agents and with the players. Second is that we need to have this planning going on in our energy sector, so that prices are stable, and there is no untold increase in the bills, and which kind of shocks the consumer and their sentiments rises to the level where they come up on the streets and they create this strike phenomena, and we lost businesses. What we need to do is we need to have this constant communication with consumers, with the market players, with the agents, with the economic agents, so that things run smoothly, and we plan for we make ourselves prepare for this takeoff stage, so that the coming government or next government can use this leverage and build on this, because if we foster uncertainty into the market, it would translate for the longer period of time, and it would get worse and worse for the coming governments.
Let me go, Dr. Khaqan. What about things like smuggling? The fact that our inability to adequately deal with them, as a source of revenue. We haven't succeeded there, have we?
So let's talk about what are the two items which are, I think, on top of our list currently. Because of course this evidence is not data based. A lot of it is based on reports that we hear. So one is Iranian oil coming to Pakistan. It's cheaper. It's coming across the border. I hear it's being sold not only in Balochistan area, but some parts of Sindh as well. So now can we clamp down on that area? Maybe we can, but is that helping us, some of the people who cannot buy 3 or 5 rupee petrol or whatever the cost of diesel is? So we have to think about that. The other smuggling that is being disruptive is that I think monies from Pakistan are in terms of the hard currency being smuggled to Afghanistan. Now, this is what we hear. Now, I've had a discussion. I'm trying to get a sense of this. I know there are media reports. I've talked to a few people so that, maybe I can talk to the policymakers and convey that this concern is there. I don't know if the quantum has jumped, if the Afghan need has improved, or if the cross-border movement has changed. But I'm glad that the PM has taken a meeting on the smuggling. One way is to, of course, come very harsh, but these things have to be taken in perspective. They've existed for a long time. So he has kind of directed the authorities to be more vigilant and come a bit harsher on the kind of smuggling that is taking place. Now, let's see what the result is. But these are still small in numbers. The kind of dollars would probably move. It's actually the dollar liquidity crunch, which is in the main markets, which we have to solve. So I'll give you an example. I think our interbank market is $100 million or so, and our curb market would be what, $5-8 million daily. That's my back of the envelope guess. Just trying to get a sense, even if the smuggling is there, it's on the smaller quantum, but it is there. There are also signs that the sugar we did export, maybe we did more export than we needed to, but there is then this smuggling talk that we've heard as well. Again, so I'll give you an example. When I say communication with the market has become extremely important, the sugar season starts somewhere in November. I once wrote a report on sugar, so I'm quite well aware of the sugar market and how it operates. So, Mahrukh, what happens is it starts on 15th of November, goes on till end of March, somewhere till maybe April, and then the sugar is sold the rest of the year. So 4-5 months operation in the country, Sindh and Punjab. Sindh starts, then Punjab and KPK, and it goes on. Now, let's say the stocks are available till the 15th of November. The government, the authorities must come and say, this is the number, it is available, there is no shortage in the country, we are comfortable with this number, we are balanced in supply and demand. Even if they were to say this, maybe that would create some semblance. Let's say if we are balanced, I would advise then we have to import. Maybe, it's wrong that we exported more than we should have. But whenever Pakistan and these markets go into a balanced scenario, I think the demand pull creates a price hike as we are seeing. So this is the kind of short-termism as well as the high-frequency communication I'm talking about. This clarifies the issue. And if there is smuggling, we must also talk about it, that these are small numbers. Don't get carried away and don't create, a panic of having rupee as a currency that you don't like and dollar as a store of value. So this communication has to be very high frequency. The people who've come in the caretaker setup have been around for a long time. These are not people who are not aware of these things. When we even sit outside, we read, we know these things. But I think what is missing here is that this high frequency communication, very few people understand now. Even when you talk in the US, the governor there of the state bank, just a similar, talks a lot with the markets. The reason, communication.
You're talking about communication, and of course, that's high level communication as you term it. But there's also another communication here, and I think that, that's also very relevant. We've seen a lot of unfortunately inaccurate reporting, which I'm also going to ask Dr. Khalid about. But firstly, there's a Dr. Khaqan, there is generally a trend towards misreporting. There is unfortunately a lot of sensationalism. And when you talk about factors contributing to uncertainty, I'm sure, this is also one of them, because it's having, it's like a Chinese whisper, where it starts from something and then it manifests into entirely something else. About what's happening as far as the dollar is concerned, as far as the market trend is concerned, as far as the fuel prices, and as far as economy is concerned. And that misreporting fueled for sensationalism. How to what percentage would you say is also responsible for the kind of uncertainty that we are looking at and seeing? I would say even despondency. Ji, can you hear me? Ji, Dr. Khaqan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. I thought you were asking Dr. Khalid. So, yes. Yeah. So here's the thing. I mean, yes, I think the doom and gloom that exists in the country, of course, we have to, lift ourselves up, and the leaderships lift us. We try and, give our 2 cents on this matter. Look, these are solvable issues, but they are necessarily not easy issues. They are complex issues. Even in the short term, the solutions are complex. You have to have a lot of competent people get and seek advice from very professional and competent people, so that they can get you over the hump on the energy situation, on the liquidity issues that are there in the market. And then something that you've said is very pertinent. These numbers to get what stock of sugar is there, what stock of sugar is not there, what stock of atta is present in the market, what isn't, where the hoarding is taking place. These are severely difficult areas, and our reporting may not be, that great on them. I agree with you. and then the sensationalism on all TV channels. But part of it is true also. Mahrukh, I mean, there is a rise in the energy prices. There is a rise in the food and commodities that people use on the daily basis. So we have to kind of counter that with improved supplies, and coming out harsh on hoarding and smuggling, and coming good on improving our supply side as well. So both go hand in hand. And I think that is the kind of response that is needed in the short term by the caretaker setups, which I hope they can give in the coming few days.
Right, fair enough. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Khaqan Najeeb. I understand you have to leave early. Dr. Khalid, you heard what Dr. Khaqan said. He said it has to be a combined effort to sort of redress the miscommunication, a lot of propaganda also, but it has to be with other measures to combat what's happening, because the reality is that it is there, but whether it's blown out of proportion or not is another question also. Do you think that the government with this government with its mandate, short-term caretaker government, it's not going to be able to do the long-term structural reform? It doesn't have that mandate.
Yes. One thing to understand is that we need to understand market forces. There are two fundamental market forces, demand and supply. They interact and this sets a price. The interaction between these two forces is very adversely affected by expectations. When there is instability in the market, when there is uncertainty in the market, when consumers, they are expecting that inflation would rise, they start to hoard, they start to add up things, and they start to hoard the things, which causes the demand to go up and causes the prices to go up. One thing is that there is a need to control this uncertainty so that market forces could jump in.
And they don't respond to that uncertainty in a negative way.
So there is a stability in the market. I agree that the mandate of caretaker government is very short-lived, very short-term. They are not here for these structural reforms, but they are here for stability. They are here for to take care of the economy in the immediate terms. One of the immediate solution is that they take care of this uncertainty. One possible solution or one viable solution is that the price determination of petrol and diesel prices that can wait for 1 month. Currently it is being set after 15 days. If we longer this window, maybe this could pitch some of the stability in the market, and this would create some sort of this would decrease the expectations of the consumer that after 15 days price of the petrol is going to up, and they start to they think that all the prices of the other commodities would also go up. And this would translate some of the address some of the uncertainty in the market. And second thing is that what different immediate solution this government can take in terms of electricity bills. One is that the burden of summer bills can be shifted to the winter months, so that there is a average uniform price for the consumers. This will give them a very good fiscal space, and this would help solving their inflation related problems.
We also have with us Dr. Gulfaraz Ahmed, who is a former Secretary of Petroleum and Chairman NEPRA. Dr. Sarfaraz, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Dr. Sarfaraz, overall, Dr. Gulfaraz, overall, there is, of course, energy has become a huge issue. We've also seen the government try to do, the resolve is there. We've seen the Prime Minister say that, they want to have some beneficial measures in place for the people, but then they also want to make sure that they don't have a long-term, inverse effect for Pakistan, for economy. Do you see that happening? I mean, in terms of short-term measures as a solution to the energy crisis?
Actually, Pakistan's energy situation had somewhat stabilized, and the forces dynamics were quite agreeable to Pakistan's energy sector. But about a year and a half or 2 years back, when the market structure collapsed and short-term government took control, and some or the other their focus was not the well-being of the people, the well-being of the country, but somehow in disempowering the local masses and local institutions, and they also impoverish the country. It's going to be very difficult in a short term by a non-permanent government, which is 190 days or 20 days government, that they can stabilize the energy situation. It is, there's no doubt that this interim government.
Dr. Gulfaraz, isn't it true that in 2018 the energy situation was a lot better than what it is now?
Indeed, a lot better. That's exactly what I'm saying, that Pakistan's energy situation has been worsened in such a manner that in a short term it cannot be easily stabilized.
But it hasn't. But then you would agree that it hasn't been a year and a half. It's been much more than that. It's been, since 2018, the situation, as far as the energy situation is concerned, has continued to worsen.
Well, energy situation was not as bad as now, because I don't know, when you say it's worse, what actually you visualize. Knowing the reality, what is involved in saving energy situation, and knowing what perhaps can be brought into effect in the sport of energy situation, there's not a whole lot that we can do. And so from that point of view, it's going to be very, very difficult for the present government or whosoever is behind the present government. They neither have the knowledge of the energy, nor the experience of the energy, nor people will trust them in the energy. I think whosoever is carrying physical and moral responsibility of Pakistan with 240 million people, they need to now come out and lay bare their plans or whatever it is, and don't let the country go from one day to second day in this mode, quagmire.
Dr. Gulfaraz, my question, these are political answers. When you talk about the fact that there should be, of course, for the elections, there has to be a caretaker government. That's what our constitution says. For there to be, and as far as the government term is concerned, it's a 5-year term. Whether there was a vote of no confidence or there was, whatever change we saw, either one has to agree that the change in electricity, as far as capacity, as far as the challenges that we've seen in the energy sector, started downhill from 2018. And that whichever new government comes in, whether they are going to be able to bring in those structural reforms or not, I mean, that of course will be a question for when the government is in place. This government again has a mandate, limited mandate. It has to be by nature short term. It's a caretaker government, and they have to do whatever they can in the meantime, right?
Yes, there is no doubt that this government is there to do a very limited job of holding as fair an election as it possible in our environment, and then handing over the power. That under normal circumstances, that was enough if they could do. But if they were able to hold the elections and not be able to save the country from worsening economy and exploding energy sector, then perhaps there may not be peace and stability for the new government to take over. But one does not realize that Pakistan has never been that thin on the ground. And therefore, whosoever has any bit of power left in Pakistan, they need to save Pakistan, and they can't save it only through an interim government. I think whosoever has played a role.
Dr. Gulfaraz, you think that let me come back to you. Dr. Khalid, do you think that the kind of situation that we are facing economically, first of all, do you agree that things in 2018, as far as the energy is concerned, when the government went out prior to the elections, were a lot better on the energy front, as far as capacity was concerned, as far as the overall price was concerned, availability was concerned? Would you agree on that?
Yep, things were a lot better in 2018, but one thing is to understand is that there is a connection between economy and energy and economy. Our energy sector is very volatile in terms of interest rate and in terms of exchange rate. Whenever exchange rate go up, the fuel prices they go up. I would say the energy generation cost would go up. Whenever interest rate go up, capacity payment charges they go up. Combining these two, tariff go up. So in 2018, economy was in lot better shape. Today it is very volatile. Interest rate is all-time high. Exchange rate is all-time high.
Fair enough. And also, how much of this, when this government before the caretaker set up, the former Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Sahab and the team that was in place, when they came in, the IMF crisis, overall the balance of payment crisis that we saw, a lot of the 9th review pending, all of those things, the government was grappling with trying to restore the IMF program, which was unfortunately stuck. In that kind of a situation, now if we have the elections, I just want to correct this misconception. I don't know if it is one or not, and correct me if I'm wrong. We keep talking about elections and we keep saying that general elections should happen. The 5-year period ended, and then we have a caretaker government in place. Whether there is a few months delay or there is not a few months delay, whether the 90-day period is followed or it's not followed entirely, when the elections are held and a new government is in place, why do we think that that government will have a magic wand, or that government, whichever government it is, whichever party it is, will have the solutions for us immediately? Whatever it is, we are in for the long haul. Isn't that true?
First and foremost, there should be clarity when election are going to be held, because this would send a positive signal to the market and all the stakeholders that are involved in this. This would bring confidence to the market as well and to the investors. Second thing is that whenever there is a long-term government, or whenever there, I would say, the representative government, it can take structural reforms ahead. We need structural reforms, not just in energy sector, in our financial sector, in environment domain, in you name it. Yeah.
But when were those structural reforms held? That is my question. We've had governments, like you said, representative governments in place for a while now that have failed consistently.
I think we should strive for this representative governments, and we should strive for this structural reforms. What structural reforms can look like in, I would say, in energy sector. We often link energy sector with just electricity, which is not the case. In energy sector, there are other fuels as well. We need to correct our cooking preferences. We need to correct our transportation sector. So we need this long-term government going on, which can have these structural reform. What structural reform in the transportation sector, they look like that. We need to convince our consumers, we need to have demand side management, we need to convince our users that they would go for more mass transit system and public transportation instead of their personal vehicles, so that we can save transportation fuels. Just to give you an example, if we just save 30% of the fuel, it is like 330 million per month, which translates into $3.6 billion per year, which is equivalent to this standby arrangement program, which means just by containing our transportation fuel by 30%, we can have this whole lot of dollars coming into the economy.
Which means having a conducive, friendly, public transport in place. Like, for example, we have, at this time, for a while now, there have been attempts by, for example, in Punjab and also here we've seen, but to have maybe a larger framework of this kind of a public transport and an encouragement, a change perhaps in people's way of living overall, it would mean a change of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And across the board changes like that, which would, like you're saying, maybe reduce, and measures that would then result in something concrete, right?
Yeah, there are two types of solutions to this problem. One is from the consumer side, which is known as demand side management, which you talked about, that we need to have this behavioral change or change in the way we are dealing with this problem. Second is a supply side solution. In terms of supply side solution, government do not have this fiscal space to invest in these bigger projects. For this, we need to have private investment coming into the country, private investment coming into the transportation sector, private investment coming into the energy sector. For that, we need to have a stable government. We need to have a clear mandated government which have clear mandate to take things forward into the long term. This will give confidence to the investors so that they can invest and they can have a rate of returns going up and more investment is attracted to
But Dr.
towards
Khalid,
Pakistan.
isn't it a cycle? Like, you know, first of all, as far as the 9th review is concerned, as far as the IMF is concerned, we had little choice but to agree to the terms. The terms were that there would be these periodical increases, whether whichever government is in place. The fact that the caretaker government is in place, it has to, you know, make those changes. It necessitates, you know, our agreement with the IMF. The consequence of that you're seeing in the energy sector, in the fuel sector, all of that. So, you know, that there's a whole chain of it, right? And there's little that what is the mandate of, what can the caretaker government do at all, in your opinion?
Well, in terms of mandate, their mandate is very clear that they are here for
the election.
for the elections. But the sentiments
in terms of making the people comfortable, what can they do? What room? Of course, they have a very limited room to play with, but what's that room in your opinion, as an energy expert?
First is that they need to stabilize the market. They need to have clear price signals going into the market. Second is that in terms of exchange rate volatility, it is needed to be corrected, because whenever there is a volatility in exchange rate market, hoarding would be there, speculations would be there, exchange rate would increase. Whenever exchange rate increases, it increases our fuel cost, it reflects into the electricity tariff, it reflects into the petrol and diesel prices, which is directly linked with the inflationary pressures, which is directly linked with consumers' purchasing power and other sort of things. So we need to manage this uncertainty. The caretaker government, there is a need to bring stability into the market, just like Dr. Khaqan was saying earlier, that there is a need to have constant communication with the consumers and all the other agents in the market, so that there is a clear roadmap that prices are setting with a determination of market forces, supply and demand, and there is no speculation or there is no smuggling going on in the country. And their mandate is simple, that hold the election and take care of the stability in the market.
Dr. Gulfaraz, what are, you know, in your opinion, what are the, technically speaking, what are short-term measures that the government can at this time take to perhaps make people comfortable? They can defer payments. What else can they do?
Well, I do think that there are some possible measures that we can take. First of all, I would go to the period when the energy projects were being executed, implemented, and power plants were being built. At that time, there was one big flaw, which in an interministerial meeting I pointed out, that somehow or the other that flaw remained unfailed. That was that although it was understood that all the investment would be done by the Chinese, and therefore there would not be a competitive bidding for these projects. But at least there should have been a competitive bidding from among the Chinese bidders. So since that did not happen, then the best technologies were not used, and there was no competitive edge in order to reduce the tariffs, with the result that you have some undesirable technologies installed, and the tariff is very high, and you do not need at least 50% of the power plants established are not needed to dispatch for the time being. And Pakistan's biggest problem in the energy sector today is the capacity price. Your sector, energy sector, is going down because of the weight of the capacity price. So because of that flaw at that time, we can float the thing now to our friends Chinese that since there was no competitive bidding, there was no way to reduce the prices, there was no way to ensure the best technology, that they should give at least some relief to us till such
Dr.
that
Gulfaraz,
all
when
our
we let me interject. When we go to the pace with which we saw growth before 2018, if that pace had continued, in your estimation, as a technical expert, in your opinion, if that pace had in fact continued, if new factories had continued to crop up, if CPEC had continued at that pace we saw before 2018, wouldn't we be in a much better position at this time? Would we not have been able to deal with these challenges today in a much better manner, as technically speaking, in your opinion?
This is an important question. But the way I would answer that at that time, when we went ahead with the spree of only putting up the power plants, we did not match the requirement of transmission lines and other accoutrements which are needed to dispatch power. Then we were wasting time. We're going to waste time to do those things after the power plants are complete and the dues, paying them the tariff, paying the
overall, if the
and
pace had continued, things would be much better today.
No, I can tell you this thing that at that time you did not see the problem. At that time, you were only putting out power plant after power plant, and the sale had not yet come, capacity price had not yet come, transmission lines had not yet come.
Isn't it true that our generation capacity then and now, the difference between that is huge?
Disaster at that time was out of beyond our eyes. 2018, when
unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Gulfaraz Ahmed. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Khalid Waleed. Thank you so much for being with us today. Overall, of course, we see a government grappling with trying to ensure that they can stem the kind of hurt to the people being caused by inflation, by the economic crisis, by the energy crisis that we are seeing at this time, doing their best to trying to have any kind of measures in place that may have some solution for the common man, for you and I, in the short term, and we hope that there will be some relief very soon. But in the meantime, it's important to remember that even after the elections, the kind of situation that Pakistan faces at this time economically will need a long haul, will need patience, will need a lot of work, and there are no magic solutions to where we are at this time. Uplifting or not, that seems to be the reality of the position we're in at this time. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.